Donkey Kong Bananza is the Nintendo Switch 2's most essential exclusive thus far. Sure, the console features other great games, but as far as exclusives go, Donkey Kong Bananza is pure gameplay bliss. If anything, it's truly a sublime gaming experience. And the game being of such high caliber makes sense when considering the dev team behind it. See, Donkey Kong Bananza was developed by Nintendo EPD, an acronym that absolutely does not stand for Nintendo Entertainment Police Department, but instead means Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development. Furthermore, the Nintendo EPD label was created back in 2015 when the House of N decided to merge two different divisions together in an effort to internally streamline development and production. A studio that consists of numerous teams working on Nintendo's first-party lineup like the Zeldas, the Marios, the Metroids, games involving this horror movie monster, and etc. And the Nintendo EPD team behind Donkey Kong Bananza was especially respected, mostly because this team's prior game was 2017's Super Mario Odyssey, a delightful title that ranks among the greatest 3D platformers of the last 10 years, is flat out one of the best Mario games, and is just an exceptional game, period. The team truly achieved greatness with that title, and Donkey Kong Bananza matches and sometimes even surpasses the quality present in Super Mario Odyssey, mostly because Bananza simultaneously features similar gameplay elements to Odyssey, all while branching out with unique gameplay ideas that make more sense in a Donkey Kong game rather than a Mario title. Gameplay that befits an adventure where the main character is a gorilla rather than a game starring everyone's favorite Italian plumber, or second favorite Italian plumber. However, before we dive into Donkey Kong Bananza's gameplay serenity, let's first discuss the story, which kind of sets the background or the backdrop for this title's gameplay. The plot follows the one and only Donkey Kong, maybe you've heard of him, as he is mining for Banandium, a valuable gem that is shaped like a banana, which is just adorbs. However, Mr. Kong's innocent act of mining for Earth's resources is interrupted by the evil corporation known as Voidco and Void Kong, Voidco's villainous cartoon character of a president, which sadly isn't the only reality to have one of those. Through Voidco, Void Kong steals gems and digs further underground with the stated goal of finding the Banandium root that resides at the planet's core. Void Kong's rationale for this potassium excavation is that the Banandium root has magic powers that can grant a wish from those who ask it, and seeing as evil companies mining for Earth's resources are villainous even by evil corpo standards, Donkey Kong fears for the world if Void Kong is granted whatever his heart desires, and thus Team DK and Pauline, because of course she's in this game, more on that in a second, aim to stop him by digging further underground and exploring the various worlds within it, because this game's take on digging underground is of the Hollow Earth variety. Donkey Kong Bananza's story probably isn't the reason as to why you're playing this game, but it does have some merit. In fact, the story acts as a prequel to Super Mario Odyssey, as seen by how the character Pauline is present, but as a child this time, and acts as Donkey Kong's friendly companion throughout Donkey Kong Bananza's runtime, something that overall instills a sense of heart in the game because we, the player, care about both Donkey Kong and Pauline via the two's emotional bond and adorable antics. We just click with their relationship, which was a very impressive feat. Mostly because Nintendo platformers, 2D, 3D, or otherwise, generally don't instill this level of personal investment in terms of connecting with the characters or the story. While yes, Nintendo platformers generally always have their charm via the timeless gameplay and the narrative pastiches, but there generally isn't a lot of there. It's kind of like visiting the state of South Dakota. It has some admittedly impressive scenery and will create some memorable experiences, but it doesn't do much else beyond that. Also, there is the occasional disrespect to indigenous culture. However, Donkey Kong Bananza's character development improves on the Nintendo platformer standard and succeeds due to how, unlike all the other characters in the game, Pauline actually speaks, and not just in text bubbles or grunts, but she actually says words, which establishes a personal link between the player and the narrative because Pauline can actually vocalize her desires and goals, meaning that she feels like a fully realized human being, Unlike Fi in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, what even the hell are you? This connection is important because it gives the player an in-narrative motivation, one that exists beyond the sublime gameplay, wholesome presentation, and the vibrant, colorful visual art style. Because, playing as Donkey Kong, I wanted to protect Pauline with my life and defend her from the forces of evil, like this bozo or the Green Bay Packers. No harm will come to her. With all of this being said though, Donkey Kong Bananza's narrative and character development aren't the ultimate reasons as to why you should play this game if you have a Nintendo Switch 2. As most of us know, when it comes to the majority of Nintendo titles, gameplay reigns supreme, and that remains true for Donkey Kong Bananza. Gameplay that, as stated earlier on in this video, best complements Donkey Kong as a playable character, because while the game champions platforming staples like jumping and collectibles, more on those later, Donkey Kong Bananza is comparatively unique, especially because, unlike Mario, Donkey Kong is a bruiser who solves his problems with his fists and muscle, his grit and might, a gameplay distinction that can be seen by the fact that Donkey Kong Bananza is a voxel game, which is honestly the title's most important gameplay characteristic. Now, some of you might be wondering what in the hell a voxel-based game is. And to be fair, I was in a similar boat before doing the research for this video, and that boat is game development jargon gobbledygook that is borderline incomprehensible to my brainium. And to be honest, that boat can go straight to hell. So I don't butcher this explanation like how I butcher the names of many actors. I am so sorry. I'm going to quote the opening paragraph of Windoc's 2025 essay called The Evolution of Voxel Games and Their Influence on Game Design, which I recommend you read in full because it is very interesting. Link in the description. To quote the article, imagine a virtual world where every element from clouds to rocks to trees is made up of small cubes. In this universe, everything is built from blocks. This world is that of voxels, a true revolution in 3D that emerged in the 1990s. A voxel is simply a fusion of the words volume and pixel. Essentially, it's a cube placed within a vast 3D grid. By assembling them, one can create objects, terrains, or even beautiful particle effects. End quote. The rest of the article lists a bunch of games, some you've probably heard of and some you might haven't. Minecraft, however, is probably one that you know about and is a voxel-based game, and was very influential seeing as a lot of modern voxel-based games have procedurally generated worlds like Minecraft, randomized gameplay settings that can go on forever and ever for an eternity. Though if that world doesn't feature a Portillo's, I'm giving it 0 stars. But that isn't the case with Donkey Kong Bananza, because the game's design is deliberate rather than procedurally generated. It's a game created with intention. Where a title like Minecraft has a world that can stretch forever, Donkey Kong Bananza's voxel traits, its design grid, exists through the game's incredibly interactive, destructible environments. Locales where our befittingly unsubtle gorilla of a main protagonist can just wreck the landscape of some sizable levels, because as Donkey Kong, the player can destroy terrain, enemies, and buildings, as well as dig up, down, and horizontally into the ground. Essentially like mining, but with your fists. Just like God intended. And for the duration of the level, before Donkey Kong leaves, the game remembers what the player has destroyed and mined, what villages we terrorized, as if we were Superman in a movie by Zack Snyder. Because local populaces best gird their loins, Donkey Kong is coming to town. Additionally, Donkey Kong can take chunks out of the terrain and throw them at enemies, or surf, no relation, on those aforementioned chunks if the player needs to traverse the environment a little bit faster. So yeah, DK can use the environment to his advantage there as well. With all of that being said though, there are certain areas that Donkey Kong can't jump to, destroy, or reach, even with those thick, strong gorilla arms. And this is where Donkey Kong Bananza's voxel grid and destructibility truly shines. Throughout the game's runtime, Donkey Kong unlocks Bananzas, which are different timed animal transformations that Donkey Kong can undergo that come pre-packaged with various abilities that manipulate the gameplay environment within the voxel grid in incredibly creative ways. Abilities that the player can attain and switch to with the simple press of a button, which is something many old school gamers probably would have appreciated in Donkey Kong 64. Dear God, I just reopened an old wound for many millennial gamers. And maybe Gen X too. When it comes to suffering, we are very inclusive here. To list the Bananzas, there is the Kong Bananza that transforms DK into a more physically powerful and destructive version of himself. Hell, in this transformation, he can even break walls and other materials that are otherwise unbreakable. There's the Zebra Bananza that grants DK high speed. In fact, he's so fast that he can run through walls like the damn Kool-Aid Man and run on materials that are intraversible as well as over water, because Gorilla Jesus will take us to the promised land. Then there's the Ostrich Bananza, which allows Donkey Kong to glide across the landscape. Also, the Ostrich transformation also comes with the ability to drop explosive eggs on enemies as if you were a stealth bomber. There's the Elephant Bananza, which is honestly the best Bananza in the game, because it allows DK to suck up the environment like a giant vacuum cleaner. Also, you can chuck some of the environment and material that you collected towards enemies as well. And finally, there is the Snake Bananza, which is entirely based around jumping and vertical movement. In other words, this is pretty awesome. And all of these abilities are incredibly useful in a variety of ways, whether that be in the combat, platforming sections, or by just demolishing the environment. They all have a purpose in the game, and the player will need to utilize all of these abilities in order to find and smash all the collectibles. To list all of them, there's the Bananium Gems that are used to upgrade Donkey Kong's abilities, his Bananza abilities, attacks, health, and his capability of detecting nearby collectibles. There's the gold-like substance that funds construction projects such as Little DK vacation homes, as well as barrels that allow Donkey Kong to reach otherwise unreachable areas. Also, the gold charges up DK's Bananza meter, is used as currency in stores, feeds the soul of a Banandium tree, and is unfortunately utilized in the event of DK dying, which is an act that incurs a cost penalty. Because nothing is safe from the system, we can be fined even in death. There's the Banandium chips, which can be exchanged for Banandium gems, pretty self-explanatory on that one. And finally, there are fossils, which are used to buy clothing for both DK and Pauline. Clothing that is more than just cosmetic, seeing as they have stat buffs, though wearing outfits to be stylish is valid in and of itself because fashion. So yeah, there are an abundance of items to collect, items that all have value, and the amount of collectibles are numerous, far more than just what you accrue during the main quest alone. Like, there are recurring side activities, optional challenge stages, some of which use a specific Bananza power, and of course, Banandium gems hidden in the earth waiting to be mined. There's just a lot worth doing and exploring in the game. As you can infer within this review so far, Donkey Kong Bananza is exceptionally well paced. Between the Bananzas, the amount of collectibles, how those said collectibles are used to aid DK on his quest, the destructible environments courtesy of the voxel gameplay, the challenge stages and such, Donkey Kong Bananza constantly keeps the player engaged to its platforming action throughout its runtime, though much to the detriment of our significant others. Hey babe, I love ya, but this peaceful village ain't gonna blitzkrieg itself. And Donkey Kong Bananza's level design variety only adds to this sense of pace. As stated earlier, Hollow Earth theory is in effect here, which means despite how you're digging underground, you get a variety of worlds and stages with many different climates like a winter tundra, jungles, volcanoes, beaches, because I'm very good at beach, and so on and so forth. Additionally, many of these stages contain unique gameplay challenges, some of which are via the aforementioned usage of Bananza powers, but some use the voxel gameplay specifically, like with puzzles or objects that require DK to manipulate the environment. Also, some stages feature different sorts of terrain, some of which inhibit or even prohibit movement that require DK to utilize his giant gorilla brain to find a way to deal with that nonsense. So yeah, Donkey Kong Bananza just contains a multitude of ideas that keep the game Subway fresh, Nathan Drake style. On one final note, I just want to discuss how good Donkey Kong Bananza feels to play. And I'm not just talking about its platforming or the amount of fun you can have throughout, but I just mean the feel. Because every punch, every stomp, and every time you break something comes with enticing sound effects, colorful visuals, and tactile feedback that transformed my ADHD brain to its happy place. Like, there's the obvious that comes with every time you collect a Banandium gem, but beyond that, every sound, visual, or controller vibration, whether from music, because each Bananza has its own raucous theme song, or if it's the sound, visuals, or controller vibrations spawning from the act of breaking and collecting items, which often concur in very quick succession, are all just so damn satisfying. Like, maybe it's just my neurodivergent brain, but Donkey Kong Bananza, it feel good. Hell, it's like an interactive fidget toy. So to sum up, Donkey Kong Bananza kicks all of the ass. While I'm generally hesitant to label anything as, you have to buy the new $500 game console for this one game style of killer exclusive, you should definitely play this game if you have a Switch 2. It's kind of a necessary purchase if you already have the console, because at this juncture, Donkey Kong Bananza is the Nintendo Switch 2's best game.